US President Donald Trump has suggested that US television networks which give him too much negative coverage could have their licenses revoked. He was speaking after ABC.
The relationship between presidents and the media has always been one of tension, scrutiny, and at times, outright conflict. But few moments have captured global attention as much as President Donald Trump's recent remarks, suggesting that television networks critical of him should maybe lose their license. Delivered while aboard Air Force One during his return from a state visit to the United Kingdom, Trump's words sparked immediate controversy. Critics saw an attack on the First Amendment, while supporters viewed it as a necessary pushback against what they believe is a hostile media environment. The incident has since ignited a wave of debates across newsrooms, late-night talk shows, academic circles, and even within the Federal Communications Commission itself. What began as a comment about media negativity has evolved into a heated national discussion on censorship, accountability, and the limits of free speech in America. It also raises a fundamental question: where is the line between government oversight and media independence? This balance has defined American democracy since its founding, and every time it is tested, the outcome carries lessons for the future. The spark: Jimmy Kimmel's controversial monologue. The immediate catalyst for this storm was late-night television host Jimmy Kimmel. Known for his sharp wit and outspoken commentary, Kimmel delivered a monologue that targeted the aftermath of the tragic killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Kimmel accused Trump supporters of attempting to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them. He added that the MAGA gang was using the tragedy to score political points, before comparing Trump's public mourning to the way a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish. The remarks were provocative, deeply polarizing, and quickly drew outrage. Officials in Utah, where Kirk was killed, argued that the suspect had been indoctrinated with leftist ideology, pushing back against Kimmel's framing. The combination of grief, political tension, and cultural division turned Kimmel's words into national headlines. Soon after, ABC, under pressure from the Trump administration and facing criticism from media regulators, suspended Kimmel from the air. What might have remained a late-night controversy escalated into a national issue with constitutional undertones. For many, the move demonstrated the immense influence of political power on entertainment media, and how a single comment can ripple outward into wider debates about free expression and responsibility. Trump's response: maybe their license should be taken away. When questioned about the situation, President Trump pointed to what he saw as overwhelming media hostility. He told reporters, "I have read someplace that the networks were 97% against me. Again, 97% negative. And yet I won, and easily, in last year's election. They give me only bad publicity and press. I mean, they're getting a license. I would think maybe their license should be taken away." For Trump, this was not just about Jimmy Kimmel or one specific comment. It was framed as part of a larger pattern in which television networks were allegedly aligned against him, producing overwhelmingly negative coverage. But suggesting that networks could lose their licenses struck a nerve. America's system of checks and balances, especially its strong protections for freedom of the press, has traditionally kept political leaders from influencing broadcasting rights in this way. Trump's words therefore raised the question: was this a passing comment born of frustration or a genuine signal of intent? It also reignited discussions about how politicians measure media bias, whether by personal perception, selective data, or polling studies. For some, the issue was less about licenses and more about whether Trump's remarks represented the latest round in his long-running battle against the press. The role of the FCC between regulation and politics. Central to this unfolding debate is the Federal Communications Commission, the body responsible for overseeing television and radio broadcasting. The FCC does not directly regulate content in the way some might imagine, but it does grant licenses to broadcasters, ensuring they operate in the public interest. Brendan Carr, chair of the FCC, quickly weighed in. He accused Kimmel of engaging in the sickest conduct possible and warned that networks like ABC had a responsibility to act. According to Carr, "We're going to continue to hold these broadcasters accountable to the public interest, And if broadcasters don't like that simple solution, they can turn their license in to the FCC. Carr also praised Nexstar Media, one of the nation's largest station owners, for refusing to air Kimmel's show after his remarks. Nexstar, notably, is currently seeking FCC approval for a $6.2 billion merger, meaning regulatory goodwill is critical for its business future. These developments raised questions about whether regulatory decisions were being shaped by political considerations. Some observers argued that media companies, aware of their dependence on FCC approval, were preemptively silencing voices critical of the administration. Others insisted that broadcasters were simply responding to offensive and insensitive remarks. The tension underscores the power of regulators in shaping media landscapes, especially when their authority intersects with political narratives. How much independence the FCC maintains in times of political controversy is a question that scholars and commentators continue to debate. Free speech in the spotlight, constitutional boundaries. At the heart of the matter lies the First Amendment. Legal scholars were quick to remind the public that freedom of speech is enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. While private companies can make decisions about programming, the government is largely restricted from punishing speech based on political content. As one constitutional expert put it, the FCC cannot revoke a broadcaster's license simply because the president dislikes its coverage. To do so would set a precedent fundamentally at odds with American democratic values. Yet the suspension of Kimmel, paired with Trump's comments, created an atmosphere of uncertainty. Writers in Kimmel's team spoke of fear in the writers' room, unsure whether political pressure might cost them their jobs. Former President Barack Obama also weighed in, warning that the administration's approach represented a new and dangerous level of cancel culture, one in which regulatory power was wielded against dissent. The broader legal community has stressed that while freedom of speech is robust in the U.S., it is not absolute. Speech that incites violence or poses genuine threats can be limited, but political criticism and satire, the kind Kimmel engaged in, typically falls squarely under constitutional protection, making this case especially sensitive. Public reaction, from Hollywood to the talk show circuit. The controversy did not remain confined to political and legal circles. Hollywood late-night hosts and trade unions all weighed in with strong reactions. Stephen Colbert declared on his CBS show, "This is blatant censorship. With an autocrat, you can't give an inch." Jon Stewart, appearing on The Daily Show, responded with satire. He joked that he was now a patriotically obedient host and referred to Trump as "dear leader," lampooning the idea that television hosts should fall in line with government preferences. Actor Ben Stiller, hack star Gene Smart, and Hollywood guilds like the Writers Guild of America and Screen Actors Guild condemned Kimmel's suspension, calling it a violation of free speech. But not everyone agreed. Dave Portnoy of Barstool Sports argued that Kimmel's punishment was not censorship, but simply consequences for your actions. Fox host Greg Gutfeld insisted Kimmel had deliberately and misleadingly blamed Kirk's allies. British presenter Piers Morgan added that Kimmel had caused understandable outrage all over America. This split in opinion reflected the broader cultural divide in the country, with some seeing censorship and others seeing accountability. The range of responses also highlighted how intertwined entertainment, politics, and news have become, with late-night television serving as a cultural battleground as much as a source of comedy. International echoes, lessons from abroad. The debate drew comparisons to other nations where free speech has been tested. Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Ressa, a journalist from the Philippines, highlighted parallels with her country's struggles under former President Rodrigo Duterte. She cautioned, "Americans are like deer in headlights. If you don't move and protect the rights you have, you lose them, and it's so much harder to reclaim them." Her warning underscored the global resonance of the U.S. debate. What happens in America, often seen as a beacon of free speech, shapes perceptions of democracy worldwide. Commentators also noted issues in Hungary, Turkey, and Russia, where critical outlets faced regulatory pressure or shutdowns. While the United States is far from those scenarios, observers argue that even the suggestion of revoking licenses can chill journalists and broadcasters. The Kimmel saga thus serves as both a domestic controversy and a reminder of global patterns in the struggle between political authority and independent media. the broader implications: media, power, and democracy. Beyond Jimmy Kimmel or ABC, this controversy raises fundamental questions about democracy and free expression. The situation illustrates how fragile the balance between government oversight and freedom of expression can be. It also shows how media companies caught between regulation and public opinion make decisions that affect not only their business, but also the cultural fabric of the nation. Trump's remarks may have been offhand, but they highlight a trend in which media freedom becomes entangled with political loyalty. The role of watchdogs like the FCC becomes especially critical in ensuring that regulatory power is not wielded as a political weapon. This also raises important questions about the future of media trust. If audiences believe that coverage is being shaped by political pressure, confidence in journalism erodes. And when trust in media declines, democratic societies face greater challenges in sustaining informed debate and healthy civic life. Closing thoughts. What comes next? As the dust settles, the key questions remain unresolved. Will this controversy fade as another chapter in the turbulent history of presidential media relations, or mark a turning point in how America balances free speech and accountability? For now, Jimmy Kimmel remained suspended. Networks weigh programming choices carefully, and the Trump administration insists coverage is unfair. Critics, meanwhile, argue the very essence of free expression is at stake. Trump's suggestion that networks maybe lose their license is not just about one host or one president. It reflects the ongoing negotiation between power and speech, a negotiation that defines democracy itself. The coming months will show whether this becomes a fleeting skirmish or a landmark in America's First Amendment battles. Either way, it has already forced Americans to reflect on the value of free speech and the responsibilities that accompany it. What do you think about this unfolding controversy? Should television networks critical of the president face consequences? Or does such pressure risk undermining free speech in America? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on stories shaping politics, media, and democracy.